So hello everybody, this is Roman from the Typography lab at Berlin University of the Arts. Welcome to our YouTube channel, which will be filled with some small videos about technical aspects of typography and typeface design in order to answer some of the fundamental questions about, technical skills in typography. Some of them will be in English and some in German. So if you're watching this on Instagram, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It would be great. Thank you. For this first little video, I was asked by somebody on Instagram about how to work with smart components in the Glyphs app when you're designing Chinese typefaces, which is what I do, at least to some degree. And I'd like to share now some very basic ideas about working with smart components in Glyphs. I'd like beforehand to let you know that each and every designer, be it native Chinese or from abroad or whatever, have their own technical solutions for the composition of Chinese characters in font production. So this is just my little guess, and I will comment about other alternatives during this video. So let's get started. I'm using Glyphs 3.2. Let's get started with the basics. I generated two Chinese characters, both of them radicals, and would like to combine them as components to form another character. When preparing glyphs to become smart components, it is very important to have in mind the path direction and starting points of each graphic element in the glyph, and crucially the follow-up of strokes or elements within this framework. So I was wondering all the time designing Chinese characters as to how to memorize the follow-up of the strokes, because otherwise, if they don't fit to each other in the layers, the glyphs will be distorted or don't appear at all. So they have to have the same order. And if you correct them, especially, the order may be, changed, and some problems arise with that. So I wondered how to memorize this follow-up of the strokes, and I came up with the idea to use the classic method of calligraphic writing. That means I know by heart that this stroke would be the first one, and then the other one. So that's how to easily memorize what you've been doing all the time. Stroke 1, stroke 2, stroke 3. So I didn't come up with any other idea as to how to remember this and ease up the work a little bit, thanks to Chinese tradition. So one point about Chinese characters. The cool thing in the Glyphs app is that with Chinese characters, anyone can become a smart component. So you don't need to generate a component, with another name or whatever. So you just take the glyph and turn it into a smart component. Just that by adding a layer. Here you have the layer menu, and you just click on the plus to generate a new layer. And you have you have a lot of options in naming these layers, but some of them are standard. So if you want to have a layer for a different width, you better call it width, and it's got to be uppercase in the starting of the word. So this will help a lot with automizing the process later on. Okay, how do I want this letter to transform itself? Let's change the width, and reduce contrast a little bit. So this is basically how I start to work. And with this very simple character, it's easier to go through this process, while other characters get distorted easily. You will see that with the other one. So, let's try and see. So this is 310 units wide. We could still make it narrower, and 270. And I'm trying to make it a 300, just to ease it up. Maybe something like this. And so now we have a width axis. We have a width layer. And now the second thing is what we need is the height. Because in comparison, if this character, the Earth radical, is standing on the left, it has to be smaller, so we need to change the height as well. And in this case, I always, select the center of the selection and do something like this first. It distorts everything, and now I can change the details. Maybe something like 85. And still care for the positioning of everything. So this point is very crucial, and it has to be checked and constantly tested as to how it still works. So this is now just a very quick sort of trial for me. So I have the regular layer, which is the standard layer, the width layer, and the height layer. And if this radical stands on the left, it means, the foot, or I always call it the foot, the third stroke, the final stroke has to be lifted a little bit. And that's what I still have to care for. So let's add another layer. I personally always call it foot position or something. You could invent that. So there's no standard procedure for this. And as far as I know, let's try and see how it works. I always do something like that, and of course now the stroke is not as bold as we need, and the position is not right, so we still have to change some of the details. Well, maybe something like that, a little bit less. Probably let's just work with that for the first. So we have altogether 4 layers. So what to do with them now? The glyph is now containing layers, but it's not activated as a smart component yet. So there are some options for this. So I don't know where to find this in the window, but I always press Option, Command, and I, which will give me the smart glyph settings. So that's Option, Command, I. And here I have my layers, and I can see the parameters, Eigenschaften in German. So I can select all these parameters, and let's hit the plus button. So I need 3 options, 3 axes to work with. So that's the width, the height, and the foot position. So okay, let's start with the width. Be sure it has to be uppercase, and otherwise it will not work automatically. And yeah, let's select the next one, height, as well as foot. However you call that. This is not a standard layer anyway. So also it's not a standard axis. Let me check out how how are my figures. So maximum width is 910. So it's 300 to 910. Go into the menu. Minimum width 300, maximum width 910. I've started to do this in kind of percent, like 50 or 100 or whatever, but it turned out to me personally, you better work with the absolute figures. Okay, let's check the height. So the regular height will be 890, and this is 200. So it's minimum 200 and 890 maximum. And in terms of the foot, I think it's okay to use, something like percent between 0 and 100, because this axis refers to the transformation of this character, of this glyph, of this layer. And now it still doesn't work. I still have to assign the proper layers to the appearance of these axes. So the regular is always maximum, maximum, and in this case it's minimum, because nothing is to be done. The foot should not be lifted with the original character, of course. In this case, width needs to be on minimum, the height still on maximum, and still the position of the foot is not changed. In the height layer, the width is on maximum, the height on minimum, and position of the foot as well. So now we select everything for the foot. So maximum, maximum, and 100%. So this is kind of the setup I've been doing for this special radical. Regular, width, height, and position of the foot, which is my invention. You could do whatever you want. Let's press the OK button and see. I'll do the same now for the other glyph. And let's go back to the regular layer. And it's the other radical or element I need. It's Li, which means strength. And I need it for my character. So I need to do and go through the same procedure. I better don't bore you with drawing all these characters right now. So I'm going to prepare this a little bit. So you see I added the width layer for this character. It's not an outburst of beauty, but something, to work with in this little tutorial probably. And it's 200 units wide in comparison to the other layer being at 870. So I will add another axis, the width axis to this, 200 and 930 as far as I remember. And in this case, only one axis leads to only two parameters being set for the first. And that can still change after all. Anyway, so a helpful thing for you, a helpful tool is to use in the view window to be sure to activate the master compatibility. Make glyphs show the master compatibility of each element that you're using. So that leads to these beautiful, colorful displays of the diverse layers, and you can check whether everything's okay. So in case I'm messing up with the order of elements, such as right now, everything will turn red, and you will notice very quickly that something is not really working. So let me recheck this again and copy the characters into the right order. Everything's going to be green and safe. So here you can have better hints as to whether the follow-up of these graphic elements and the strokes will still work. Okay, now the next step is try to generate a new glyph. Let's try and see. I think this character means something like a wall. But I think it's not very common. I just chose this because it's, so simple and still comprises of two components. And let's have it here. So this is what we need. And let's see if it works. So one good thing. So one good thing about glyphs in the Chinese context is that you don't need to set anchors to the components like you need in Latin and other scripts, including Korean Hangul. And I'm glad to know that Chinese characters don't have that. So they can still come together as components, forming other characters, and you don't need to set any anchors to that if you don't want that. I don't. Others may want to. Knowing that, we can now assemble this glyph. Let's check out the Unicode of this. I copy the Unicode of this character, and now Control-click the glyph, and I will find a command called add component in English. In German, it's Komponente hinzufügen. Let's do that. And glyphs is going to ask me which component to choose, and I can paste the Unicode and get the glyph. So this is where it is now. And you see, in comparison to the original, it is not, it's just kind of gray, and you cannot see the interior elements anymore. And now the component windows opening up automatically, and the cool thing is now you can change the width, and with no limit to have in mind, and with no steps or whatever, and then you could still change the height and the position of the foot. So this kind of the thing that we want. Probably a little less, I'm not sure. I tend to even the curves, even the digits a little bit. So in order to make this, to finish this, I'd better use 380 and 720 or whatever, maybe a little more. 780 maybe, and or 800, and then let's say 40. Why these even figures? Probably I'm pedantic, but I have in mind as well that you should probably avoid mistakes to happen, and it's probably more precise like this. For me personally, it feels, to see those even figures makes me feel I have done this and not forgotten anything. So let's try and see how it works, and add the other component, which is this one. Copy, Control-click, add component. Now paste the Unicode, and here it is. So I can do the same with the width axis of this element, and well, I don't know. So the the good point of this now is we can freely position the elements, and with anchors this would not be possible. They would be fixed at a certain position, like the accent on the I, or with Hangul it's like all stuck together. And in this case I'm a bit more free without having to prepare for it, the positioning of these various elements. So this is kind of it, and I'm not very happy yet. I've been thinking about still lifting the other horizontal stroke. So what could I do? Probably lift this one a little. Oh, that's not nice. Maybe I need another layer for this. Let's call it hung shift, or however you like to call this, and shift the stroke. And yeah, so could be a workaround for this problem, and I need to select it. So now I'm adding a new axis for this process and make it usable. So if I click on the component, I see now the new parameter, and I can still slightly lift the stroke. And let's try to adjust a little bit, maybe a little more here. 580. Well, something like this, just to let you know how smart components work in a very basic setting. Now, I've seen many different and differing, ways of work with these Chinese characters, and mine is, just one of a million of possibilities. So let me state that my friends, especially in China, and I bet Japan would be the same, many young designers don't really think this is the best option to really do, the high-end aesthetic quality, to fulfill the requirements of aesthetic quality in Chinese characters. So it's probably not that simple. I would like to state that, it depends on what you want to do. If you plan to do the next, high-end calligraphic typeface of China or Japan, you probably don't want to do it as bluntly as I did. And many adjustments have to be made, in bringing these components together. Anyway, I think it could be still helpful, at least for a part of the job. But on the other hand, the downside of it is it requires a lot of axis, count in these components. So many of my friends on Instagram or wherever have asked me, why are you using so many layers and so many axes? Because, if you work with components, you have to prepare them for all the circumstances they're in, and that means more axes and more trouble with these axes, and, to work around, etc. So many of my friends don't use these components at all, and there are some tools in glyphs where you can find components of characters even without using smart components. It's called the siblings tool, and I don't use it, so you can check out other sources for that. It has its advantages and disadvantages, but that's just a general statement that what I am doing is not necessarily what you need. Point in glyphs as to find all the instances of these components if you have, imagine, thousands of them or 100 of them, and you'd like to find the characters where these components are in. So in case you have more than just one instance, as you see, I added another character to make you see the option. You just press, you just click onto the instance of this component, and right click or control click, and there's an option to show all glyphs that contain this component, and that's very useful. So just in case you only see one character and wonder how many other characters will be influenced if I change one of the components, I just control click, activate the glyph, control click, and show all glyphs that use this component, and there it is. So obviously it doesn't show the source glyph, and you just need to double click on the component to make it appear. So here it is, the radical with its layers. They may look ugly, but that's just to show you the way it easily works, and make it up for your decision as to whether you'd like to consider to use this option or not. So I hope this was of any use for you. I'm actually planning to record more of this stuff regarding Chinese characters and other scripts, whatever. If you're interested, just hit the like button or whatever on our YouTube channel, and you're going to be informed as soon as anything new is on the way. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.